So these look like fun. I almost. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be something that I am going to be working on for the entire year. So I guess that'll be fun. Basically, in my last video, I mentioned that I own so many books. This is only two of my bookshelves. I have a spinny one right over there that I got on TikTok Shop that I don't recommend buying on TikTok Shop because it's very cheaply made. Anyway, one of my goals is to read books that I already own. One of my goals for 2026 was actually reading the books that I physically already own. I will say I'm, knock on wood, pretty lucky that a lot of the books I own have either been given to me or because of my job I've been able to obtain for lower prices. I have still bought books, obviously with gift cards and stuff. But I own a lot of books that I haven't read. So one of my goals for the year that after I read a certain amount of titles and such, I can reward myself with a newer one or whatever, is reading the books I already own. So this video is only going to be showing some of the books I really want to read in 2026. If I actually get to them, we will see. Let's start off with the first one. Now, I will preface this by saying I've already read this series. However, because it's big on Disney Plus and it's been getting really popular, and I have a couple friends who are reading the series, and you can kind of tell from my Camp Half-Blood shirt represent that I will be rereading the Percy Jackson series. I kind of want to reread all of them, including Heroes of Olympus, including Trials of Apollo, and including, I don't necessarily know what the next series is. I have it in my little stack that's right next to me, and we'll talk about that later. But it's been a while since I've read all of them. I had some of my nieces and nephews over for a while, and I read them the first couple chapters as like their bedtime story, and I forgot how much I liked it. So I've already started the book. I might as well try to finish it and then go on to the rest of the series. So for those of you who don't already know, this whole series follows the Greek gods in modern times and their children. The first series follows our main character, Percy Jackson, who is a son of Poseidon, and there is this big prophecy that he could potentially make or break Olympus. And there's a whole war when it comes to the Titans and all of that. So I'm not going to go much into it because this is a very well known series. But yes, Percy Jackson and the rest of the books of Rick Riordan's plethora are on my list to read. So that's just the first one. To continue on with that, I also have Chalice of the Gods, Wrath of the Triple Goddess. This is the second book, and I don't even know what this. I think technically it's a continuation of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. I don't think this has like an official series in it. Oh, I didn't realize there were drawings in here. That's fun. I didn't even realize this was a special edition. Is it a special edition? It's just sprayed edges. So they haven't announced the title of the third one, as far as I can tell, but there will be a third and conclusion one of Percy's senior year. Basically, is kind of what Rick Riordan says. So I want to try to finish, get up to date on that. And there is another one that I don't have, but I can insert here. The other series that's been going on, I'll put an image here. It's called Court of the Dead. It is a sequel to The Sun and His Star, or The Sun and the Star. I have that something. Is that behind me? Hold on. Don't I own that? I think it might be over there on the other bookshelf. But that Court of the Dead is another continuation of Nico and Will's story and dealing with all things. For that one, though, they go back to Camp Jupiter. So I think that's going to be really interesting. And I also think Percy could be more in that because, spoiler alert, if you don't want to be spoiled, go ahead like 30 seconds. Percy and Annabeth go to the University of New Rome, which is in or near Camp Jupiter. It's like in that vicinity. So that's going to be fun. So yes, that's another one I'm very excited to read. So this next one is 3 books that I'm going to read that I don't necessarily know what they are about. However, my niece went to college and got them for me because she wanted me to do reviews on them. And it's just like this little series here. I think it's Sarah Ladd. That's how you pronounce her last name. It follows, I think it's like mysteries of 3 different women and like Regency era stuff. So like this one is a child vanishes and she has to work with, yeah, it looks like this one's a mystery. She's taking care of her dying friend's baby, and then the baby goes missing, so she has to work with the sea captain to try to find said baby. That is The Heiress of Winterwood. Next we have The Headmistress of Rosemere. This one So it looks like at 25, Patience is the headmistress of a school that her father used to own and run, and then she meets William Sterling, who is her like landlord tenant guy. Um, but however, he is in a lot of debt, so I think she is fearful that he is going to try to sell the school. So that's another interesting one. And then we have A Lady of Willow Grove Hall. It looks like this one, there's just a lot of secrets. Our main character, Cecily, has a secret that she doesn't want people to know, and she becomes a lady's maid, but then she meets a guy that she's well acquainted with from her past, and it looks like it's them trying to ignore each other, but then they can't obviously ignore each other because they're in the same vicinity. The last thing on this thing is, will they continue running from the past, or will they stand together and fight for a future without the suffocating weight of secrets long kept? These are like fun little Regency mystery romance things, so these are ones when I need like a palate cleanser, I think I'm definitely going to pick up. Next, we have a classic that is very popular and has been sitting on my shelves for a very long time, and I need to read this book this year, and it's going to be Iron Widow by Jiran J. Shao. If you don't know anything about Chinese history, there was only one female emperor in the entire history of China. And she has not been reflected on very well, probably because she's a woman, also because she executed some people. Nothing her male counterparts wouldn't have done. So this book, Iron Widow, follows Zhu Tian, who is a concubine pilot. So this book takes place in space, science fiction-y kind of stuff, where concubine pilots are piloted by women. And they are matched up with male pilots in order to power the chrysalis, I believe it is. And those, or chrysalises, I should say. And those are big. Think of the Power Rangers, those big mecha things that they're in. They help power those. However, most of the time, the concubine pilots are the ones that are sacrificed in order to help power up those or be in these battles. So our main character says, no, I don't want to do that, especially after her sister is sacrificed for that. So she sacrifices her male partners, and she ends up being known as the Iron Widow. And so in order to reel her in, they partner her up with Shiming, who is stubborn, who is powerful, and basically just trying to reel her in. But she has had a taste for power, and she's not going to give that up very easily. And that is the basic premise of Iron Widow. So this is a duology, and a fun fact I know, because I saw it on social media, there is a polyamorous relationship in this. And I've heard it's been done very well. So I'm very excited to get into this. To follow back on our Greek mythology, I'm a Greek mythology girly, and from the previous video I mentioned this book before, but we are going to try to read Hera by Jennifer Saint. I am dying to read this book because I love Hera, and she is often, I don't want to say she's misjudged, because she has done some terrible things in Greek mythology. It's a thing that happened, arguably nothing worse than what, again, her male counterparts have done. But Jennifer Saint is really great with focusing on the women in Greek mythology or in Greek history in general, and talking about them and their own experiences from their points of view, because we don't have that. So I'm very excited to see what she does with Hera. I loved her other works, and I want to get my hands on this. If you read the synopsis, it also talks about Hera going on this journey of trying to figure out if she can break the cycle of cruelty and violence that has followed her family since the beginning of time. So I'm so excited to dive on into this. I never really thought of myself as being someone who would be really into horror books, but I am that person. So our next book is going to be by S.T. Gibson, and it is An Education in Malice. This is a dark academia book that takes place in Massachusetts. I'm sure this is probably a great book to read in the fall time if you're trying to get into those vibes. But again, this is another book that has just been sitting on my shelf for so long, and I've read S.T. Gibson's other books. I think they wrote A Dowry of Blood. They did. They wrote A Dowry of Blood, which is a Dracula retelling from the bride's point of view, and I loved that book. So I'm very excited to get back into S.T. Gibson and everything they write. Again, very heavily academic rivalry going on with our two main characters, and also, fighting probably the patriarchy as long as we're there, but there's secrets, there's lust, there's blood, there's horror, there's scary things. The first word that pops out of my head is bloodthirsty professors. That comes right up. Our two main characters have to work together to figure out if it is worth sacrificing everything they love and everything about themselves to have this knowledge. And I think that's so interesting for in like a dark academia kind of a thing. We have our first nonfiction book on here. If you don't know anything about me, obviously I love reading, I love stories. I myself have also always wanted to be an author, but I put myself to high expectations and that I need everything planned out before I even start writing, which isn't what you're supposed to be doing. If anything, you just write. And this year I want to actually get my hands and write something. Even if I don't end up publishing it one day, I just want to tell myself I did it, you know? And one of those resources that I want to be using this year to get that done is going to be Stephen King's On Writing. Every author I've spoken to myself or watched their videos have highly recommended this book. They say it's great and it helped them truly understand the art of writing and when it comes to it, and truly what you're trying to do at the end of the day when you're telling your story. You know, what story are you telling at the end of the day? Is it a fun, whimsical thing? Is it a dark horror thing? Is it a weird lyrical, like, you don't really know if anything is like true kind of a thing? And this book was extremely helpful for them. This is another book I've had on my shelf for a long time, and I want to dive into it and see if it helps get that writing bug out of me. I will say I've never read a Stephen King book, mostly because I'm a chicken. Even though I just said I read a bunch of horror, I don't. His horror is different. I think his horror tends to be more on the gory side. But I do want to read Carrie. I will say that much. I'm very excited to read Carrie. I will never read it. I'm going to put that out there right now. Unless I get 10,000 subscribers, I'm never going to read it. It's never going to happen. So, I'm very interested to know if Brandon Sanderson would ever do like a how-to on writing. Maybe he already has. If he already has, I'll put it over here. But he just writes so much in these huge fantasy worlds. So I would love to know, like, on page, I would love for him to explain how he does it, his mind, and how it works for all of that kind of stuff, because the amount of books he puts out in a year and the intricacy of all these high fantasy worlds is just, it always baffles me. And he's like, I don't have any of his books. I think if I were to ever start on my Brandon Sanderson journey, it would have to be with audiobooks. So if you have a Brandon Sanderson recommendation, put it in the comments below. I would love to know where I should start. Anyway, that is On Writing by Stephen King. This next one's kind of funny because I have had this on my shelf for a very long time. But I am also a Taylor Swift fan. And yes, I watched the Taylor Swift documentary about the Eras Tour and found it very fun. And because we kind of already knew everything, but it was fun seeing the behind the scenes of it. And if you don't know, when you were watching the show, at one point she was listening to an audiobook. And that audiobook happened to be The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. So I saw that I already owned it, and I was like, well, might as well pick this up because I have been interested in it. This story is a mystery. It takes place at a summer camp where a child goes missing. And this isn't the first time that a child, specifically a child of the family that owns the camp, has gone missing. So that's just a fun little mystery. It's a very hefty book, so I'm interested to see. I didn't even realize this is a signed copy. Oh, look at that. It's a signed copy. I didn't even know that. This is like one of those free books I got. But yeah, so that's going to be next on my list. Am I just reading it because Taylor Swift was listening to it? Probably. But like, come on, guys. I've worked at a library. Okay? I won't say what library I work at, but I work at a library. And the wait list for this was so long. And many a time, if a wait list is very long for a book, I don't want to read it. Mostly because it's just not my thing. Not my shtick. Not my genre. And a lot of them end up being book club books. So it takes a long time to actually get your hands on it. However, yeah, Taylor Swift was listening to it, so I want to read it. God, kill me now. But, like, celebrities do it for a reason. So, that is The God of the Woods. All right, we are almost done. I have 2 more books to go through. No, I'm going to leave this sticker on because I want to talk about this. I've had this next book for such a long time. And I'm just going to tell you this now. All right, this next one is The Witches by Stacy Schiff. I have had this book for such a long time. I am a huge Salem witch trials person. I find that history so fascinating since I was a young kid, being like, oh my god, there's witches. And now it's like, oh my god, the political things that were happening at that time were so crazy, and I can't believe this actually happened, and it's probably happening again in real life. Yes, I've been in such a Salem witch trial mood recently. I feel like it keeps popping up on my For You page, and I just want something that kind of gives a deeper dive into it, all the different theories about why it started, how it continued and happened, and how potentially to prevent it in the future. I specifically want to point this out because I got this from Barnes & Noble pre-COVID, probably. So I've had this for 6 years. Look at that bargain price. We're talking about that? That bargain price right there? You cannot find that at a Barnes & Noble nowadays. That bargain price is probably $15 now. Maybe more. Yeah, like original price, $32? I don't know how you people are doing book hauls and stuff all the time. That is a crazy amount of money to pay for a book. Like, we just have to be honest. I'm not going to be a whole video in and of itself. The price of books nowadays is crazy. But hey, I work at a library, and I'm encouraging you to reach out and go to your local library and borrow those books. And if you can, donate money, because we need money. Last, but certainly not least, the last book / series that I want to read in 2026 is 3 Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. I have all the books in the series. I have read the first 3 books. I think there's a 5-book series. And I have read the novellas. But because I'm dumb and I don't remember books after I read them, I have to reread the entire thing to remember the people, the magic, why certain things are happening, trying to figure out how certain things are going to end. But I've always really loved this series. This series also has a place in my heart. Have I met Kendare Blake? I think I went to a talk with her before. But this is just like a fun fantasy. I say fun fantasy series. It's scary. If you don't know what this is about, this takes place on a magical kind of island where every generation triplets are born. And these triplets will have some sort of magical power or affinity to them that kind of correlate with the different courts. Or not courts, but different houses that have power. And eventually, when they turn 18, I think, when they turn 16, they have to start battling each other to figure out who's going to be queen of this island. So there's different types of queens. There's the elemental queen, which, can you guess, they have the elements. There's the poisoner queen, who can be immune to poisons but can also create them and do all this kind of stuff. I forget what the animal one is, but there's an animal queen. She's in control of all the animals. There were queens that were oracle queens or like prophecy queens. However, they were too dangerous. So if that kind of queen is born, they are gotten rid of at birth. And it's said that the queen births the children, right? And then she goes off on an island, never to be seen again. Who knows if that actually happens? But once the queen has given birth, she has to leave. So it's such an interesting series, such an interesting magic system, and I finally want to wrap it up in 2026. So let's see if I can hold this big pile. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. Oh God. Okay. If you could see, these are all the books I want to try to read in 2026. Look at that. Will I actually read all these books in 2026? Who knows? Hold me accountable in the comments. I'll keep you updated. The pile's falling. I have to end the video now. I will see you all next time.